You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. I'm sure you've read, as I have, about the NFL's treatment of cheerleaders. It's scandalous, on top of their racist scandals. But the treatment and the attitudes towards cheerleaders, as it turns out, are really quite horrific, hair-raising, in fact. And the first cheerleader to dare lodge a complaint about the NFL is with us today, along with her lawyer, and they'll talk about just what the reality is of that treatment and what they're doing to change it. And there's Surrealism Corner and Fighting Words, and before we do any of that, you know where we're going to go. We're going to go inside the headlines. We simply must lead with the story of women triumphing over the Roman Catholic Church and male supremacist laws in Ireland. But I want to go deeper into that story, so let's pick up with it after we cover some other headlines. Another story worthy of a lead is this one, due in no small part to pressure from women and from men of conscience tweeting embassies of Saudi Arabia in this country and around the world. 3 of the jailed women have been released. They are Aisha Almana, Madeha Al-Jarous, and Hessa Al-Sheikh, all veterans from the original protest in 1990 against the ban on women driving. We're glad and grateful for their release and thank each one of you who participated in that campaign. However, the other women are still being held incommunicado, so the pressure has to be kept on, and we have to be discreet about what we say and what we use as a tone. Politeness is good in our protest in order to be effective and not endanger them further. When they can talk, I know they will talk on this program, as in fact they have before. The headline blared that the grand jury had indicted Harvey Weinstein on charges of rape and other sex crimes, charges finally brought by District Attorney Cyrus Vance Jr. But there really is quite another story inside that headline, the story of the power of women's movement activism. Vance faced heavy criticism from women's groups and from the police for his 2015 decision not to prosecute Weinstein after an Italian model presented a tape recording of Harvey groping her breasts while she protested during an interview at his office. Despite the evidence of the tape recording, Vance declined to prosecute and also requested permission to dismiss charges against the infamous French politician Dominique Strauss-Kahn, who allegedly sexually assaulted a hotel maid in 2011. Women met with him, women pressured him, women lobbied him. So this indictment proves again that justice does not necessarily flow like waters from the heavens, but that activism, priming the pump, does help the flow of justice quite a lot. A couple of footnotes to this story. Federal prosecutors are investigating additional possible financial improprieties by Weinstein and allegations he may have violated federal stalking laws. Plus this. University of Southern California President Max Nikias has agreed to resign in the wake of an uproar over a gynecologist accused of abusing many students at the campus health center. It just goes on and on. Now, although the headlines were about Roseanne Barr, her mental instability, and her virulently racist remarks, once again another story needs to be told from inside those headlines. Again, it's movement pressure, which really does work. ABC would not have rebooted the series to begin with, or swiftly canceled it after the racist tweet, had major network power remained solely in white male hands. It was a woman, Channing Dungey, who pushed for the series to be scheduled in the first place so that white working-class consciousness had a revived voice on television. And then it was the same woman who was the energy behind this past week's axing of the show. Dungy became president of ABC Entertainment in 2016 at age 49 after a rise demonstrating her talent in developing such major series as Criminal Minds and Grey's Anatomy. She is the first African-American executive to run a major network. So when we say that we need outliers in the executive suite and other positions of power, note that this makes a concrete difference. After Roseanne spewed her venom, Dungy marshaled support from her co-executives and bosses at ABC and Disney and led them to take action. Okay, Ireland. It was a landslide vote, defying generations of control by the church, defying the rise of European right-wing populism, and defying Trump's imposed curbs on reproductive rights here in the U.S. Ireland already had made a showing of the green by installing a gay man as prime minister and voting in another referendum in 2015 to allow marriage equality. Now it has voted to repeal one of the world's most restrictive abortion bans. The turnout was about 64%, with 66% of the vote going to the yes vote. Yes meant repealing the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution, a 1983 measure that bestowed equal rights on the fetus and the woman. The government is now preparing legislation to allow unrestricted pregnancy terminations up to 12 weeks. This ends an era in which thousands of women every year were forced to travel abroad or buy pills illegally online to terminate unwanted pregnancies, risking 14-year jail sentences. It will also end the stigma, secrecy, isolation, and shame attached to having the procedure. Any such major leap forward is actually a series of incremental steps taken over years, and the vote in this referendum has been building for at least 2 decades. Organizers harnessed the rage of Irish women that was intensified by scandals involving the church and pedophile priests, as well as by the notorious Magdalene Laundries history that surfaced, where thousands of unwed, pregnant, so-called fallen women were shamed and placed forcibly into labor slavery, working daily with caustic laundry solutions in assembly line fashion in laundries that were run by the church as late as the mid-1990s. And in a case that stunned the entire country, the remains of nearly 800 children born out of wedlock were found in 2014 in a Catholic-run home for mothers and children in Tuam. So although some priests took to the pulpits threatening their congregations wouldn't be able to receive communion if they voted yes in the referendum, their congregations voted yes. Not only the children of so-called fallen women who were taken away from unrespectable mothers to be placed in orphanages where they too became free labor for the church. Now the Irish government has formally apologized after an inquiry into what was once a common practice, falsifying birth certificates to make it seem as if the adoptive parents were the birth parents. This, too, was a side effect of unwanted pregnancies due to the prohibition on women having rights over their own bodies. For the referendum, the pro-choice organizers focused wisely on specific cases of women denied abortions, cases like rape or fetal abnormalities, or the case of Dr. Savita Halappanavar, a 33-year-old dentist who had asked for a termination due to a partially miscarried dead fetus. She was denied, and she died from septic infection in 2012. Her name became a rallying cry, and women are now pressing to call the draft law Savita's Law. 2 last points about Ireland and this referendum. One was the moving story of thousands of Irish citizens who live around the world coming home specifically to vote, since Ireland doesn't permit postal or absentee voting. Using the hashtag #HomeToVote on Twitter and Instagram, they've been sharing their stories, most of which reflected the sentiment of Eleanor Costello, 25, who planned to vote yes, and said, "I'm coming home for me, for my sisters, and for all Irish women." And in a development surprising everyone except, feminists, now the Northern Irish are calling for the same change. Northern Ireland has blocked all efforts from London to liberalize its abortion law dating back to 1861, which permits termination only if the life of the woman is endangered. No other exceptions, not rape, incest, or fatal fetal abnormality. But while opinion polls show that the majority of the Northern Irish want abortion to be available, and that's across both Catholic and Protestant groups, the issue is mired in sectarianism that is currently strangling politics. The law could be changed by a simple act of the National Assembly, but the National Assembly has been suspended for more than a year. In the meanwhile, however, Women on Waves announced and then followed through delivery of abortion pills to women in Belfast on May 31st. It was done by robot, thus didn't break the Northern Irish law because the robot was operated from the Netherlands. Although the women in Northern Ireland would break the law if pregnant while taking the pills, well, that's a matter of patient confidentiality. The robot operators and a doctor and lawyer counseled the women in Belfast remotely through the robots. Women on Waves and now Women on the Web, former guests on this program, are remarkable, and they are indefatigably creative. After the remote delivery of the pills, the abortion bus drove around Northern Ireland to offer abortion counseling and ultrasounds. I say let's dance an Irish jig in tribute to them, and to the women and the men of conscience who voted yes in Ireland's referendum, and to those still working for the basic human right of reproductive choice everywhere. We have to take a brief pause. I'm Robin Morgan, and this is Women's Media Center Live, and we will return in just a moment with the Surrealism Corner. So don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back. And now it's time for the Surrealism Corner. Scandal-plagued Missouri Republican Governor Eric Greitens finally announced his resignation, saying, quote, "The last few months have been incredibly difficult for me, for my family, for my team, for my friends, and for many people that I love. This ordeal," do note the choice of words, "this ordeal has been designed to cause an incredible amount of strain on my family," close quote. The ordeal he refers to, which has been designed, presumably by others, consists of a legislative and criminal investigation into his conduct, inquiries spanning invasion of privacy charges involving a former mistress whom he photographed without permission during bondage play, possible campaign finance violations, alleged misuse of a charity for political donor purposes, and more. That is the so-called ordeal, and Greitens is the only one who designed it. There are at least 43 Democratic African-American women who are running as challengers for U.S. House seats, but according to Axios reporting, only one, Lauren Underwood, a nurse who's running in Chicago's western suburbs, has the backing of the National Campaign Organization. Does the Democratic National Campaign Organization need reminding that black women are a powerful voting bloc for Democrats? Has it forgotten that in 2016, 94% of black women voted for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump? Does it not notice that at present there are only 19 black women serving in Congress and only 67 women of color overall have been members of Congress since 1964? Or do we just file those questions under the subhead, how many officers of the Democratic National Campaign Organization are men, white, stupid, and accustomed to shooting themselves and us in the foot? Here's a funny coincidence if you can stretch the word coincidence way beyond belief. Last month, China awarded Ivanka Trump 7 new trademarks, spanning a broad collection of businesses, including books, housewares, and cushions. And guess what happened right around the same time? Well, her daddy publicly vowed to find a way to prevent a major Chinese telecommunications company from going bankrupt, even though the company, ZTE, has a long history of violating U.S. limits on doing business with countries like Iran and North Korea. And that's not even to speak of the called off and called on and called off again so-called trade war. What's more, Ivanka just got full top-level security clearance. And isn't that a major leap forward for womankind? About as much a leap forward as the first woman head of the CIA being a former torturer. Just because you have a vagina and a clitoris does not make you a feminist. It's 2018. Do we need to keep saying that? Guess so. Trump, in a speech in Nashville, claimed that African Americans have, quote, blindly voted for Democrats for over 100 years, close quote. Whoops. It would be nice if black Americans had the right to vote for that long, since it took the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to ensure that, and even so, the black population lacks that right fully today, given voter suppression campaigns in so many states. Perhaps Frederick Douglass, who was referred to as being still alive by Trump some time ago, should get on the case and do something about the black vote, don't you think? And last, but surely the best of the lot, former mayor of New York City, don't look at me, I didn't vote for him, Rudolph Giuliani, latest current lawyer to Donald Trump, made one of his most surreal statements on Fox News Sunday. It is a hands-down surrealism winner in terms of logic, grammar, punctuation, and general insanity. It goes like this, word for word. Quote, the president's not going to fire anyone because that would be playing into the hands of the victim. You know, Watergate. They are the Watergate. They are the ones who committed the crimes. What we have to do is go to court and seek protection from the court. Period. Close quote. Honest to God, what we have to do is go to court and seek protection from the court. Those words should be engraved over the entrance to the Surrealism Corner. It's time for another brief pause here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll return in just a moment with 2 women who are making history, the cheerleader and her attorney, who are confronting the NFL on how cheerleaders are regarded both in the league and outside of it, and mostly about the way cheerleaders are treated. That's coming right up.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back again. My guests today are Bailey Davis and Sara Blackwell, 2 women who have gone up against the National Football League on the grounds of sexism. Bailey Davis is 22. She's from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. She is a former New Orleans Saints cheerleader who was fired in January, and in March, working with Sara Blackwell as her attorney, she filed a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission against the Saints for gender discrimination. Sara Blackwell is president and attorney at the Blackwell firm. She teaches employment law at University of South Florida in Tampa and is a published author. I'm so pleased to welcome them both today. Sara Blackwell, attorney, and Bailey Davis, former Saints cheerleader. Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. It's good to have you here.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Bailey, I'm going to start with you. There are a number of women, some of them feminists, who don't understand cheerleading. I've been one of them. I'm a city girl. I understand the importance of this in rural communities and where football is king and God. But it seems to me that on the one hand, you have women who have trained for the precision of the Rockettes, and with the rigor of athletes. So the Rockettes are considered artists. The gymnasts are considered sportswomen and athletes, but cheerleaders, in a sense, get no respect, low pay, and what we've now uncovered, thanks to the coming forth of women like you, just horrifying treatment with a double standard for the players of fraternalizing, than for the women with why did you go into cheerleading, and why do you think most women do?
Well, what most people don't know is NFL cheerleaders are actually dancers. A lot of the teams don't do stunts. Some tumble because dancers tumble, but a lot of us grew up in the dance world, competitive dance. So we grew up in dance studios. So we trained almost the same as the Rockettes. We all did dance team, most likely in high school or college. We did ballet, jazz, stuff like that competitively. Mm-hmm. So we are very technical dancers more than cheerleaders. Cheerleaders, grew up tumbling in the gym and that kind of thing. So we are dancers. We do turns and leaps and the technical things.
Right.
And so for me, instead of doing I'm not tall enough to be a Rockette, but for me, it was just kind of a dance team I always wanted to be on. I always wanted to be an NFL cheerleader. I was on the dance team in college and high school. So I love football and I love the atmosphere and I love dancing to get the crowd pumped up and having that fan interaction. So that's why I did it. And I think that's why a lot of the other girls did it. And it's a great stepping stone into your dance career if you want to be a professional dancer.
It is. I didn't realize that. Uh-huh. And
it introduces you into the entertainment world for sure.
I see. And the sexual objectification of the women, the skimpy costumes, the sort of infantilizing of women with special rules you didn't expect.
Right, because for me a two-piece isn't anything. I was 10 years old wearing a two-piece on stage dancing. It's just part of the art form. The costume is part of the story that you're telling when you grow up dancing. Even cheerleaders in college and in high school, there were two pieces all the time, and it's not seen as anything sexual. So I don't think it's the uniform or the choreography that makes NFL cheerleading sexual. I think it's just how it started, and the coaches enable it, and we're taught to be that way.
Right, and it's when they send you out into the crowds wearing those costumes to sell calendars, and you get sexually harassed and groped. That's where the rubber meets the road.
Right. We're taught to act a certain way and just be polite when those things happen. And you just think to yourself, when did this go from being a sport and an art form and my passion to the last thing they're worried about is dance?
Yeah. Tell some of the stories that have happened to you when you were cheerleading for the Saints. You were a sensation. I guess it is the name of the cheerleading squad.
Right. We had to go out into the crowd in the tailgating area before the games and sell our swimsuit calendars because we were told that the calendars were part of our pay. And we had to sell 20 to go on the field. And when we would go out there, the fans were drinking and we would try to interact with them and sell these calendars and we would get grabbed. There was always that fear when you walked by someone that they were, looking you up and down. We were in short skirts. I've had my butt grabbed before, and then one time a guy yanked a calendar out of my hand, and he flipped to my swimsuit page, and he made a sexual comment about my body and me in the swimsuit. And at that point, I had just lost it, and I ran back into the locker room before pregame was over, and I just was crying, and I just felt worthless, and I was ashamed, and I felt gross,
Yeah.
And they just told me I needed to grow up and toughen up. And then, when I went out on the field for the first quarter, I was just still so distraught, and I blanked out and completely messed up. Then I got in trouble because I messed up, and they told me I needed to just get my shit together. And then I got pulled from the third quarter to go back into the crowd and continue selling calendars because I came back in early.
Oh, I'm getting so angry on your behalf. I want to be a one-woman picketer at Saints games. Is it true that some cheerleaders can only take water breaks when their team's on the offense? Is it true that you're subject to regular weigh-ins, and if you don't look a certain way, makeup, presentation, that there's handbooks on hygiene tips and shaving techniques? And I mean, this is completely insane.
Right, there are. We have to have makeup on anytime we're at all times when we go to class. I was in college. I was told when I went to class I had to look presentable because people would recognize me. And like when I go to the gym, I have to wear makeup. And then, we're told how to pose for pictures, which that's obvious. And then if a guy's hand got too low, we were just told to just say, oops, can you bring your hand up a little? Or can you please hide your beer for this picture? So yeah, there were a lot of rules on that. We always had to have our nails manicured, always have a spray tan, things like that.
And you shouldn't wear sweatpants in public. The one that got me, I don't know if this is true for the Saints, but it's true for some of the other teams, is that because of fraternization, there's different rules. In other words, sure, they don't want to encourage fraternization between the players and the cheerleaders, but the responsibility is completely put on the women, so that if, for example, you go into a restaurant and there's a football player from your team there, I guess from any team, you have to leave. And even worse, this one just kaboom, my brain exploded. If you're already in that restaurant dining with friends and a player comes in, you have to leave. I mean, this is medieval.
We can't be anywhere a player is, and it's completely up to the woman to be aware of that and leave a place, which makes you feel like a second-class citizen. Like, the guys can do whatever. They can stand as close to us as they want on the field on game day, and then also in a restaurant or concert, we're the ones that have to leave.
I'm my teeth are grinding uncontrollably. You got into, goddess love you, you got into extra trouble because although you took great care that it was on a private Instagram account, correct me if I'm wrong, you posted a picture of yourself in a one-piece bathing suit for your own friends and your own family, private, and that's why they fired you? Right.
I got a text message after I'd already deleted it because one of my teammates texted me and said, you're probably going to get in trouble about this. Just go ahead and take it down. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll take it down. And so I took it down. And then 20 minutes later, I got a screenshot of it from my coach. And she said, very poor judgment to post this photo, especially considering the rumors going around about you. And prior to this, there was, I was called into human resources because there was a rumor that there was a blonde girl from Mississippi at a party with a player. And so she said that because I posted this picture, it made me seem guilty of the rumors because with this picture, I was trying to get players' attention. And at this point, I had gone through, they told me to go through and block every football player that followed me. So there were no players that were following me at this point. So I was definitely not trying to get the attention of these football players.
No, certainly doesn't sound like a way to get the attention of them. All right. So that brings us maddeningly, infuriatingly up to the present. Sara, talk about the complaint. I know that you're handling now two cheerleaders, Bailey, who's with us today, and also former Dolphins cheerleader Kristen Ware. Am I correct?
Yes, that's true. Yes. So both of them have complaints of gender discrimination for different reasons. And then Kristen Ann Ware has also a religious discrimination and retaliation claim. We, both of the cheerleaders, and I think probably all cheerleaders, when they become part of the team, they have to sign an arbitration agreement, which says you can't file a claim against the team, you cannot bring a lawsuit, and you can't do a class action. You don't get a jury of your peers. You have to go through this alternative dispute resolution called arbitration. In some way, it keeps it out of the public eye. If you don't use the media or don't have media attention, then it keeps it out of the public eye because lawsuits are typically public records,
right?
Whereas arbitration typically are not public records. So in that sense, it keeps it hush-hush.
Yeah, it's worse.
So we did a demand for arbitration for both and against the NFL and the teams. And we also filed complaints with the state and federal agencies regarding discrimination, which is allowed. You can never waive those rights. They cannot make any money off of those complaints with the agencies. That's what they waived when they signed the arbitration agreement.
Right.
But they can still file it and hopefully get the government inside these leagues saying, okay, let's look at your policies and what you're doing and see if they comply with the state and federal laws. So that's what we're hoping happens. Mm-hmm. And then also the NFL rules and regulations say that if something occurs, a discipline or any type of suspension or termination for which the employee does not agree, you can request a hearing with the NFL commissioner. And we did that as well. Of course, we haven't heard back from him or anybody else about it, but we do have that right, and we did that as well. We gave a settlement demand that we would settle the claims against the NFL if they, for $1. If they met with my 2 clients plus 2 other cheerleaders, then we'll proceed the way we were planning to proceed prior to that demand.
That's an awfully generous-hearted offer for $1 and a 4-hour meeting to try and convince them.
And it's a collaboration. It's to show them that we're on the same side. They keep telling the media that the cheerleaders deserve professional and fair work environment free of discrimination and harassment, and that's all we're saying. Yeah. We're not asking for them to apologize or admit guilt. We're just asking them, the NFL has rules and regulations that apply to the teams, that apply to the cheerleaders, that apply to the players. And so they have that ability. So we're going to go in, if we get this meeting, and have proposed rules and regulations that will be fair and professional and free of discrimination and harassment, and will prevent them from being sued in the future for violations of these laws. So it benefits them in so many ways and costs them absolutely nothing.
No, of course,
creating rules and regulations isn't going to cost them a penny.
It is incredibly generous, in my view, overly generous. You're being such mm-hmm. nice girls. My God, tell me if they don't, what's the next step?
Well, we will continue with the litigation plan as we had previously planned. I mean, a lot of the legal strategy I can't disclose because it's that's what the legal strategy is always something that you keep under wraps. But we have different things and different angles that we're planning on doing, and we're still sticking with the goal that we want fair rules. We want the cheerleaders that are there now to not have to look over their shoulder when they're at a restaurant. That's not fair. And we want to help the girls that are coming in that want to be cheerleaders to have a respectful and sexual harassment-free, discrimination-free environment. So if they understand that that's legitimately our goal, and they still want to fight and still don't want to have a conversation about it, then we're going to proceed the way we would if we were just doing litigation.
Yeah. Sara, tell me something. Even though they have to sign a contract saying that they can't join any class action, I mean, it's one of those, plantation owner contracts, clearly, that they have to sign going in, landlord's lease.
Right.
Is in the climate of Me Too, there are a lot of NDAs that are being thrown over. There are a lot of attorneys willing to, make that stretch. There's a lot of changes in attitude. Is there a way to mount a class action suit, in the face of that contract, if there are enough women who come forward? Would that be part of your game plan?
First of all, the purpose of class action is to be able to get as many people who've been affected notified of this issue and give them the opportunity to be a part of it. So first of all, we have thankfully through the media and publicity, women coming forward and speaking out, even though we don't have a class action. So, to be honest with you, if we have to bring 500 individual suits or arbitrations, we'll do that. So, in that sense, the class action is unnecessary for me. I don't mind doing it 800 times, but we do have a strategic way of bringing a class action. So if it becomes, if we have to keep moving forward, then I do have a way of filing a class action. That's something we decide to do.
There is, of course, no such laughingly. We now keel over sideways, laughing hilariously. There is no union, of course, for cheerleaders.
No, unfortunately, but that's something I'm looking into, and that's one thing I really want to work towards. The thing is that within the cheerleading, there's so much intimidation, manipulation. I mean, I'm hearing this from all the cheerleaders that speak out. They say, I'm told that I'm not important, I'm not special. There's a million girls who want this job. If I have one complaint or don't like something, if I speak out, then I lose my job and the next girl comes in. So they're taught this, they are very much intimidated to just accept what they get and keep their mouth quiet, to the point that the current cheerleaders aren't very much appreciative or on board with this. But the former cheerleaders have been more of the ones that are like, thank you for doing this. So doing a union, is something I'm looking into and working on and definitely interested in doing. But with the fact that they're so afraid, it's going to be a challenge, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all possible good luck with it. We're going to stay on this story. Bailey, hooray, cheers. I'll get out my pom-poms for you, girl.
Thank you.
It would be an awkward sight, but nonetheless, for you, I would cheer, and also for Ms. Ware, and especially for you, Sarah, for taking this on. We'd like to come back to you as the case progresses, because I think the story has legs on it, and I think the women's movement has to come forward in defense of these women who are remarkably athletic sportswomen themselves, and who deserve respect for the work they do. Proper pay. The pay is too low. The treatment is just execrable, and we ain't going to put up with it anymore. So,
that's right. Where are the fans? Where are the female fans at the NFL that say, we are not going to support this, or the male fans to say that? I mean, where are the sponsors of the NFL run by women CEOs that are saying, hey, we're not going to sponsor you anymore. We're not going to have our commercials on your channel if you're going to continue to treat the women this way, especially when they've given you such a great opportunity to fix the problem for no cost to you. So the NFL has no motivation to do anything if it doesn't hurt their bottom line. Where are the women? Where are the women hurting their bottom line, whether it's ticket sales or standing up against sponsorship, or even the men? Where are the football players? Where are any of these people saying, we're going to make it hit their bottom line so that the girls and the women in this league get treated with respect?
How about trying to make some kind of tactical alliance with some of the football players who have been protesting by having kneel-ins
against racial discrimination? Right.
Exactly.
Where are they?
if
that was racial discrimination, not in their own league. This is inside their organization.
Yeah.
And why aren't you taking a knee for that, or standing up for that, or even speaking out? If they didn't know about the gender discrimination before, they certainly know now. And yet here they are, not saying a word. I mean, we would definitely partner with we would be so grateful for any football player that stood up and said, hey, we don't want gender discrimination. Let's make a change. But I haven't heard from any of them.
Bailey, I think some of you folks should reach out to them. I think that would be dynamite, because more and more what's happening is that different groups are making alliances, and of course it's all the more powerful when they do. And you're absolutely right. One of the things we can learn from so many groups, most lately from the high school students, is that financial pressure on sponsors and advertisers and backers is amazing. Boycotts mounted against sponsors of NFL games, protests made to the cities that host them, alliances made with the football players. What would they do if all the cheerleaders came out and took a kneel, on the one hand, and on the other, hand, if the football players didn't play?
Oh, we would have been fired. I asked. I said, what would y'all do? Because we have like a set thing where we run out on, I think it's like the 10-yard or the goal line, and we pop our knee in a ripple. And I was like, it's part of our choreography. Like, so what would y'all do if one of us took a knee? And they said, we'd fire you.
You see, it's so interesting. The thing they hate the most, of course, is when folks bond together and say, you're hurting, I'm hurting, let's do something about it. So,
exactly.
I suggest alliances any possible way, and keep on fighting, and come back to us and report progress, or report the lack of progress, and then we'll make more trouble, okay?
All right, sounds great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both for doing what you're doing, and thank you for being with us today on Women's Media Center Live. You're terrific. Rah, rah, rah.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's time for one last break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll be back directly with some fighting words.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back again to some fighting words. I felt both admiration and heartache for former cheerleader Bailey Davis when she expressed her hurt and her justly angered plea for support from football fans during our interview. She also said something else that particularly struck me and has stayed with me, somehow familiar, echoing. It was early on in her repositioning of cheerleading as dancing. It really is, of course, and I'm glad if it leads to a career as a professional dancer for some women. I hope it does for Bailey. But cheerleading isn't simply dancing, and isn't the complex gymnastics the women perform. Cheerleading has been formalized, commercialized, and positioned by team owners and fans as sexist entertainment. And they treat it as such, despite the expertise of those performing the cheerleading. Strippers also call themselves dancers. But you don't hear professional dancers calling themselves cheerleaders or strippers. What the familiar echo was, however, is what you could call the classing up of a disadvantaged situation by the disadvantaged themselves. One sure way you can detect classing up is that it's used by those who are still largely in a disadvantaged position, pretty rarely by those who've managed to escape that position. Bailey demonstrated this when she said that women still working as cheerleaders were opposed to her protest against atrocious treatment, even of themselves, but women who were former cheerleaders, and thus no longer vulnerable to losing their jobs, were supportive and agreed, and often they were even eager to become involved. It brought to mind the currently prostituted women who call themselves sex workers, while those who have managed to escape the sexual exploitation industry call themselves survivors. But it's not only the fear of retribution, whether that's loss of employment or other kind, that's at work here. Neither is it merely denial of what sometimes is just too painful to admit. And it's only partly aspirational, that is, identifying with the powerful instead of with one's own less powerful self, which after all requires acknowledgement of one's own authentic experience. No, it's something that goes beyond blaming the victim, into self-blaming the victim. It's shaming the victim. The shame at being so victimized is a shame created, instilled, and encouraged by the victimizers to keep the victims silent, as if it's her fault, as if her humiliation is deserved. This just might be the most pernicious aspect of sexual crimes against women, the stealthily enforced enlistment of the victim into believing and even further propagating the so-called innocence of the perpetrator. I shouldn't have invited him to my apartment. The rape victim who asked for it. Maybe I was wearing the wrong clothes. The sexual harassment target who wanted it. I got this black eye or broken arm or concussion from walking into a door, the domestic violence survivor who stayed with him. Just try imagining a white, straight man who had his watch stolen in a mugging, blaming himself, and you see the absurdity of this internalized shame. It happens over racism. That's what having good hair and what passing was about, classing up. It happens over the perception and the self-perception of many biracial people who choose to identify themselves as white. For God's sake, it's just easier. It happens over homophobia. That's what a different kind of passing, still ongoing in parts of this country, is about. Whole families, entire communities collaborate in it, sometimes insist upon it, while everybody knows and nobody says, for shame. Internalizing blame for one's own oppression is something that happens in ageism as well. For instance, when women especially are taught to lie about our age. It happens in terms of disability. Immigrants who anglicize their names, they're classing up. The use of ethnic or racial slurs within specific oppressed groups might be claimed as a way of joking or a way to invoke solidarity, but it reinforces the terminology of those in power as well as the helplessness of the powerless. Children class up when they play grown-up because they know grown-ups have power. And it happens over class itself. Lots. The terms lower middle class and upper middle class were invented precisely to aid and abet these kinds of distinctions. I can remember my mother saying she was a lingerie designer when actually she sold corsets in a chain store. Small details and large ones. I can remember her persisting in her claim that a necklace she gave me once with orange plastic beads shaped like coral. This was the real thing, she said, from the Great Barrier Reef. And I can remember her insisting that her grandparents had been nobles at the court of the Tsar in Russia, when actually they were gutsy, peasant, shtetl Jews, scrabbling just to stay alive at the border of Poland and Russia, despite periodic raids by Cossacks, despite pogroms. Classing up ensures that you admire the wrong people, the wrong things. I can remember myself as a teenager when, having discovered that in Europe there was a class called the intelligentsia, instantly identifying myself as part of that. It must be admitted that this was not only because I desperately wanted to become a writer, but also because it saved me from the distressing decision either to collaborate in my mother's false origin story and her lies, or to deny her and thus reject her in stating the truth, which would also have included the truth that we were decidedly lower middle class. When the first fissure in that internalization cracks, it's a moment of blessed, terrifying, liberating anger. Then it begins, a process of daily application of burgeoning consciousness. The accumulated noticing makes for renaming a lot of what had passed for your reality, and it takes quite a while until you can shift the responsibility onto where it's really deserved, onto the person, people, and institutionalized system that has its foot planted firmly on your neck. What's in a name? Well, the philosopher Suzanne K. Langer once wrote, "The notion of giving something a name is the vastest generative idea that ever was conceived." I would add to that giving something the right name, even if you have to rename to do it, can be an act of great courage. Those are my fighting words, Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag #FightingWords. And that's it for today. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMClive.com for the show, plus the archive of all our previous episodes. You can also stream, download, and subscribe to our show's podcast at iTunes, at Stitcher, and at Google Play. Be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter, and you can check out my website and blog at robinmorgan.net and find me on Facebook and Twitter, too. My latest book, Dark Matter, New Poems, is available online and off wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer of this program, Julie Burton. And I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us, and don't forget to join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.